Welcome to today's video. In the days of old, long before Israel had kings or crowns, there was chaos. Tribes scattered across the land, enemies rising from every border, and the people lost in cycles of rebellion and regret. It was a dark age. But in this darkness, God raised up unlikely heroes. Not kings, but judges. These judges were not like the ones we know today in black robes and courtrooms. No, they were warriors, prophets, and deliverers, chosen by God to rescue His people and lead them back to Him. Today, I want to tell you about three of the greatest judges in Israel's history: Gideon, Deborah, and Samson. Each so different, each flawed in their own way, yet each used by God in ways that changed the course of history. Let me start with Gideon. Gideon, a man who never saw himself as a hero. We first meet him hiding in a wine press, threshing wheat in secret, because the Midianites, savage raiders, were pillaging Israel. He was afraid. And in his fear, an angel appeared to him and said words that must have sounded like a joke. "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Gideon looked around. Who? Me? Mighty warrior? My family is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my household. But God saw something Gideon couldn't see. To prove God was truly with him, Gideon asked for signs. Twice he laid out a fleece, once asking it to be wet with dew while the ground stayed dry, and once the opposite. God answered both times, and finally, Gideon believed. But God wasn't finished shaping this hesitant man. Gideon gathered an army of 32,000 to fight Midian, but God said, "That's too many." So Gideon sent home anyone who was afraid. 10,000 remained, still too many, God said. Finally, after a test at the water, only 300 men were left. 300, against an army as countless as locusts. But God delivered Israel. Gideon's tiny band blew trumpets, smashed jars, and held torches, causing panic in the Midianite camp. The enemy turned on themselves in chaos. Gideon won a victory that could only be credited to God. Israel had peace for 40 years. Gideon's story teaches us this: God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Even the weakest can become mighty when God is their strength. Now let's talk about Deborah. Oh, Deborah, she was extraordinary. While Gideon doubted himself, Deborah walked in quiet confidence. She was a prophetess, a woman of wisdom, and the only female judge in Israel's history. People came from all over to sit under her palm tree and hear her judgments. But Deborah was more than a judge. She was a leader in wartime. When the Canaanite king Jabin and his general Sisera oppressed Israel with 900 iron chariots, Deborah called for Barak, a military commander. She told him, "Go. The Lord has given Sisera into your hands." But Barak hesitated. "If you go with me, I will go," he said. Deborah agreed, but warned, "The honor will not be yours, for the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." And that's exactly what happened. Barak's army routed Sisera's forces at Mount Tabor. Sisera fled on foot and found refuge in the tent of Jael, the wife of a Kenite. But while he slept, Jael drove a tent peg through his head, killing him. The honor went to a woman, just as Deborah said. After the victory, Deborah and Barak sang a song of triumph, a song of God's power. In that song, Deborah is called a mother in Israel. Her story reminds us that God raises up leaders in surprising ways. Strength and courage are not bound by gender. Wisdom and faith are the greatest weapons of all. Finally, Samson. If Gideon was hesitant and Deborah was wise, Samson was complicated. Before Samson was even born, an angel told his parents he would be a Nazirite, set apart for God's purposes. He would never drink wine, touch a dead body, or cut his hair, and God gave him incredible strength. Samson killed a lion with his bare hands. He struck down 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of a donkey. He carried the gates of Gaza on his shoulders. He was unstoppable, as long as he kept his vow to God. But Samson had a weakness, his desires. He fell for a Philistine woman named Delilah, and Delilah, bribed by the Philistines, coaxed Samson into revealing the secret of his strength. "My strength is in my hair. If it is cut, I will become like any other man." One night, as Samson slept on her lap, Delilah shaved his head. The Philistine seized him, gouged out his eyes, and made him grind grain in prison. But Samson's hair began to grow back. At a Philistine festival, blind Samson was brought out to entertain the crowd. Standing between the pillars of their temple, he prayed, "Sovereign Lord, strengthen me one last time." And with all his might, Samson pushed. The pillars collapsed. The temple fell, killing Samson and thousands of Philistines. In his death, Samson achieved his greatest victory. Samson's life is a warning and a comfort. A warning about the cost of compromise. A comfort that even in failure, God can bring redemption. 3 judges, 3 stories. Gideon, the fearful man who became a mighty warrior. Deborah, the wise prophetess who led with courage and faith. Samson, the strong man brought low by his flaws, yet still used by God. What do their lives teach us? That God works through the willing and the unwilling, the strong and the weak, the faithful and the flawed. He doesn't need perfect people. He uses imperfect people to accomplish his perfect plans. So, which of these judges do you see yourself in? Gideon, hesitant but called? Deborah, steady and faithful? Or Samson, struggling yet redeemed? Remember this, God can use you too. This is the story of the judges. This is the story of Israel. And it's a story still speaking to us today. Like, comment, and subscribe for more timeless stories from the Bible.